Hello, 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 and welcome back. That's right, we are back because prices have started to be revealed. Oh, we're a little bit excited here, I'm not going to lie. So, welcome to Scoutcast. Obviously, usually we're on every Monday night. We are on Monday night tonight, but it's a bit of an emergency one because of the price reveals. As always, you are joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, and we are also joined by Rich. How's it going, Flapjack?
Hello. Yeah, no, it's good to be back. Good to be back. Sorry about the miss. I don't know what I did there where I spoke over the video.
That's fine. Bless you. It's lovely. They were getting the new intro and they were going, oh, look, Rich is back.
Little blooper. Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have Seb tonight. He's having a very long bath, but he will be with us next time, hopefully. Rich, where were you today? Were you kind of on tender hooks just watching all the price reveals come out? How are you feeling?
I was working, so I tried to time my lunch break well
Yeah.
and didn't. So I managed to catch a little bit of the video. I've caught up with most of the prices, although most of that I've done since 5 p.m. since I finished work. And
Yeah.
they're still dropping now, aren't they? Like I thought we were done for the day. And we've had like Fulham, Forest.
I was setting up the graphics and it was like, right, so yeah, that's fine, that's fine. No, more prices have been dropped. But it's good though, isn't it? It keeps us going, which is good.
Yeah. I think people have to let us know in the chat if there's more. Like more
Yeah,
drop.
definitely. And shout out to people in the chat. We got over 100 people in the chat already, so thank you so much for joining us. Got FPL Harry's in the chat. Hello, FPL Harry. Just going to be copying you this year. Absolute baller of a player. Peter McNamee, Vendog, Damien Bruins, Dally Pool, Alka Pool, lots of pools. Stephen Harker, Marsh. Nice to have you all with us. Let us know if you're on Twitter if there are any more prices that drop while we're here. I was on a school trip today. I was walking around a little zoo.
Oh,
People were going, Mr. North, Mr. North. I was like, shh, shh. Price reveal.
I find that weird that people call you Mr. North.
Oh, yeah. I
I
was
don't
like,
know
shh.
why.
Luton defenders, 4 mil. Anyway, should we get onto it? Should we have a look?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So, these are confirmed prices that have come out already. There are some more as well. We'll be going through those as well. That kind of each team had a few prices that were dropped too. But these are a list that Scout dropped about, I think it was about 6 hours ago now. That they dropped from the kind of individual ones we had based on the stream that was going on. So what me and Rich are going to do today is we're just going to go through these players. We're not going to talk in detail about every single one, but some of them are going to bring up discussions and some of them aren't. Then we're going to look at the tweets that official FPL have been bringing out and saying, these are 4 more, these are 4 more, these are 4 more. So we're going to look at those as well. And then just kind of how we're feeling this is going to affect our team building. Don't get me wrong, and we are massive caveat here. This is not us picking our team, and in no way are any of these players locked in our team. But of course, it's going to bring up discussion about each one. So let's have a look and see how we're going. So first one on this list is Odegaard, 8.5 million for Arsenal. Obviously, they ran Man City kind of close, but maybe not by the end. But Odegaard at 8.5, what's your initial reaction?
This one made me just want to know what Saka's price is because that
Big
defines
time.
it all, doesn't it? Like I imagine Saka's going to be more.
Yeah,
And obviously Saka's got penalties. That's why I'd much prefer him. It's just got me thinking. I mean, if they're the same price, I think it would be a no-brainer. You'd go for Saka.
yeah.
So it just makes me think about another player, really, because that's
And,
the only Arsenal player we've had leaked so far. I say
yeah,
leaked
it
or
is.
revealed to us.
It'd be really interesting if they had Odegaard, Saka, and Martinelli all at 8.5. But I think
But then you
Saka's
just
going
have
to be that
Saka.
bit more. Yeah, I think Saka's going to be that bit more to make you have that question. I mean, with everything shaping up at the moment, can you afford to have an Arsenal mid at 8.59 mil?
I think that would then lead into the Salah discussion, which I'm sure we're going to have because there's the funny thing is when they were dropping these, there were so many. It felt like I mean the first two we had were Odegaard and Bruno, and I thought these are players are all going to be really underpriced.
Yeah,
But I think the way they've done it is there's almost so many bargains that maybe we're going to have to make sacrifices to the premiums. I'm not sure,
yeah,
but I think if all three were the same price, I'd hands down go for Saka.
yeah.
Maybe the general, more casual manager might go for Odegaard because he was more impressive than Saka, points wise at least.
I suppose it makes a massive difference with Havertz now as well, doesn't it? Like, does that mean that Odegaard's now going to be kind of maybe behind Havertz? So Havertz is going to take up a role there. Havertz might still be a forward in this, and obviously that kind of maybe rules him out. But does that mean Odegaard drops back and doesn't get forward like he used to? I'd love to see Martinelli's price. Obviously, Martinelli was an absolute bargain last year. Was he 6.5 at the start?
Martinelli was 6.
Was he 6?
So Martinelli was seriously underpriced.
Yeah.
And it's a good point you make on Havertz, because I hadn't actually really thought about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be something to think about as well. Because I remember early in the season last year, no one was really looking at Odegaard. There was more discussion over Xhaka, for example, than Odegaard.
Yeah,
so
big time.
I guess we are going to have to see how these teams change, and that's why I quite like Saka, because he's nailed on. You pretty much know where he's going to be playing, unless he's put a left back again for some reason.
And I mean, their fixtures are gorgeous. They got Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace, and Fulham first 3. 2 of those are at home. Having an Arsenal mid seems logical. It's just which one you go for. But obviously, we need to know the price of the rest. Bruno's next, 8.5 million as well.
Yeah, this was what set the tone for the day, because I literally got to see the first few reveals live, as it were.
Yeah.
And this was the one. I mean, I'm not even the biggest Bruno fan from an FPL perspective, but I mean, I think he was 8 million when he was first ever added to the game. 7.5, 8 million.
Quite quick, yeah.
Yeah. And now he's shot back down again. Again, I wouldn't mind seeing Rashford's price, because I mean, if Rashford's 9 and Bruno's 8.5, and I could only have one, I'd go Bruno every day because of the penalties.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see how they price Rashford. I think Bruno on pens 8.5. I'm assuming Rashford will be 8.5 or 9, maybe. And it's going to be interesting to see which way we go, considering they've got Wolves, then Spurs away, then Nottingham Forest, first 3 fixtures. 2 lovely home fixtures there. I know a lot of people are thinking about doubling up on United. I'm assuming now it's whether we go Bruno or Rashford and then go for a defender. But 8.5 seems a little bit cheaper than I was expecting anyway.
Yeah, and Man United assets always, if there's ever a reason to get them, their EO always rockets. So
big time.
Yeah, I'd expect them to be really, really highly owned.
Yeah.
So that's already forming a little bit of a template there.
Yeah.
But it's hard to argue against going for Bruno. I think the only thing that could be a knock on him is if for some reason he lost penalties. And can you see any scenarios? I mean, Kane's not going to go to United now, is he?
I don't see that. And a massive thing about Bruno this year is obviously us signing Mount. So Casemiro, Mount next to him, Bruno just having free reign up top. He was the top creator in all leagues last year. And the minutes he plays are just ridiculous. I think
the minutes help him being a top creator as well, because obviously you're going to create more the more minutes you play, which I guess for FPL is a good thing.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting. And obviously it'd be very interesting if we sign a striker, but we got all that to come. Matoma next, 6.5. I was quite surprised he was 6.5.
Yeah, no, this one's, I mean, there are a lot of surprising prices, but I think because there's so many tempters.
Yeah.
I wasn't that desperate to get him. I mean, I haven't done a full first draft yet, but we were talking before, weren't we? And when you pointed out Matoma's fixtures, was his first one against Luton?
So he's got Luton at home, then Wolves away, then West Ham at home.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to list about 20 midfielders that we want.
We are.
But that pushed him from. I wasn't that fussed about him. I did prefer McAllister last year.
Yeah.
Obviously, it'd be interesting to see March's price.
Mm-hmm.
If March is 6, for example, that would seem a good way of pricing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting with March because he seemed to lose his way a little bit towards the end of the year, whereas obviously Matoma carried on playing. But then Matoma lost it kind of effectiveness towards the end of the season as well. FPL Rockstars in the chat, by the way, saying he's going nowhere near GN, which is Bruno Fernandes there.
Probably exhausted from leaking all the prices earlier.
Yeah, so that's probably what he's doing. But nice to have you in here with us. Watkins, 8 million. That's the first one that I've seen that seemed a little bit expensive, but then maybe I'm not considering the fact of how consistent he was and the fact he was on penalties last year.
He was great. I mean, he's not very good at penalties. That's a point to make. And we can only go on what we've seen so far. And what we've seen so far, he is overpriced compared to the other strikers.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we'll get onto the other ones, but he's more. There's about 3 or 4 more that interest me more than him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 8 million is a fair price, but there's so many bargains around that I just don't see it yet.
I think it's fair. I think I always look at prices now, not at what are they like at the beginning of the season. I always think of double game weeks. And it's if you've got someone like Watkins and Villa have a double game week and you make him too easy to get to, it's just going to be boring. Whereas I suppose if you price him at 8 million because he can do damage in those weeks, it makes a lot of sense. And 8 million,
I can see that.
Fair. Yeah.
But that's kind of what's annoying about the Bruno price, just to go back to him. Bruno was one of those ones no one owned. It got to a double and everyone's like, how do I get him in?
Yeah, true.
We've not got that dilemma with Bruno now. So, Yeah, maybe Watkins would be one. Again, it depends how many other price. We haven't got any other forwards that are at 8 million that have been released yet. The only
Yeah,
striker more expensive we've got so far is Haaland.
yeah. And we
It's
know
hard
obviously
to
Kane's
know.
going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Next two strikers, though, cheapos, 5.5 million, one from Sheffield United, one from Luton, Morrison and Dye. Obviously, I played Gaffer last year. They were both absolutely brilliant in Gaffer last year. One thing I will say is, and Dye was a midfielder in that one, so I was hoping he'd be a mid in this, and it'd be a lovely little 5.5 midfielder you can get in. But they're both strikers.
we've got enough
Both
mids.
we do.
Yeah.
Both talismans for their team, you would probably say. Morris on pens. Either of these, I think we're going to be looking at those maybe second strikers, maybe third strikers at being this price range. Tempted by either?
I think Morris might be tempting as just one of those cheap nailed strikers. I mean, obviously the transfer window's still open, but a cheap nailed striker who's on penalties.
Yeah.
We get him every year, don't we? Even like, and then Mitrovic became quite obvious last year, but we had Solanke, he was good for long periods of time. Pookie, the year before.
Yeah.
I do like players like that, and I can see I haven't obviously decided what formation I'm going to play, but almost like a 12th man, that kind of 5.5 striker, isn't it? Where you can rotate them in and out with a defender or with the cheap midfielder.
Yeah.
So I do have my eye on him. The fixtures are okay, aren't they? The Luton fixtures are okay.
Yeah, Luton. I mean, Luton. It's a tough three fixtures. I would say they got a nice fixture, Burnley in game week 2 at home, but Sheffield United have Crystal Palace at home, Nottingham Forest away, Man City away, and then Everton at home for 5.5 million. That isn't awful for a player like Ndai.
No, and I think these are going to be players we consider if we're going to stack our midfields.
Yeah,
which it looks like we will because there's a few tempters here and there.
Yeah,
maybe we are going to have to be looking at those cheap strikers.
I think people are going to be surprised how many people go for Morris. By game week 1, I think he's going to be in a lot of teams, and maybe as their second striker. So maybe people are going to be playing one up front with Haaland, and then they're going to have to go really cheap and up top.
That is like an initial thought though. Like if you went for like a 3-5-2 playing Morris, maybe you could rotate Morris with a defender. As in, you can have some really cheap defender, and we do have a Luton defender, for example. But maybe I was thinking more of a 4.5 defender.
Yeah.
There's bound to be some kind of rotation there where you could sometimes start Morris, sometimes not. Obviously, most of his value is going to be from just being a player that's on penalties and plays. So
big time.
We have to keep our eye on, if that's going to remain the case.
Yeah.
We have to ask Bricky.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want to know anything about Luton, make sure you go to FPL Bricky.
And he will not stop talking about Luton.
No,
so,
but he is very good as well. He helped me in Gaffer so much in the last 2 years. He really knows his stuff about Luton. By the way, I should say before we go on to Chelsea's newest forward, make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure you are signing up for the membership for Scout this year, because it will help you win your FPL leagues. Nkunku, 7.5 million. Do you know what? I have not been fussed by Nkunku, mainly because he's playing for Chelsea. Don't get me wrong, haven't really seen him play an awful lot, I will admit. I know a lot of people love him from Champions League fantasy football. I just don't see that first 7.5 million for a player new to the league when you've got Watkins there at 8 who's done it before. It seems a bit of a stretch for me, but I could be very wrong there.
Yeah, he's one I've seen people raving about him. I guess that you mentioned that he plays for Chelsea, and I do get the Havertz, Werner fear. As in, I remember going for them a couple of years ago. But I mean, it seems like a very good price. So if he is actually nailed in that Chelsea team, like I mean, he could make an absolute mockery of that price. At 7.5 million. When you consider we're talking about Watkins, who's obviously a great player, nailed on penalties, he's more expensive than a Chelsea striker.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting with Nkunku.
Yeah, I can't see me starting with him unless something happens in pre-season.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised. I mean, I still remember that season when we all started with Werner for Chelsea, and it was like 50% owned or something.
And I doubled up with Havertz as well, and but we can't hold that against a new signing to the league.
True. I mean, the one thing you will say about Nkunku is obviously he's a bit of a wait and see. But if you look at Chelsea's fixtures from game week 3 onwards, they've got Luton at home, Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth away. So if it's looking like he's nailed in that team in the first 2 weeks and he does anything, I think a lot of people are going to be maybe getting to him, but kind of having to move things around free up those funds up top might be tricky, but it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Brighton, obviously we haven't got all the prices, but Brighton have they start with Luton at home and Wolves away. So then if there was a Brighton striker you could go for, and that's been easier said than done in the past, maybe you could then go from him to Nkunku, for example.
Yeah. Kluivert next for Bournemouth, massive wait and see. He's only 5 million. He's a midfielder, but be interested to see how he does. I think everybody's going to be waiting on Bournemouth anyway. Fixtures aren't the kindest up until about game week 8. Then it's Mbeumo, 6.5 million. I mean, this has been the only one where I've looked at and gone, unless they sign 3 or 4 new attackers, Brentford, I cannot see a world in which Mbeumo is not in my team.
No, this seems like one of these inverted commas bandwagons that I think people have seen coming for a number of weeks now.
Yeah.
Because there was talk, is he going to be moved to a midfielder? And he has been moved to a midfielder, and he's a good price. I think I don't actually think though they could have priced him much higher. I don't think you can put Brian Mbeumo at 7.5 million, because obviously we're anticipating the fact he's nailed because there's no Tony. We're anticipating that he's going to be on penalties because again there's no Tony. But a lot of his value would just be based on Tony not being there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look like they're going to sign anyone.
No.
I think he's going to be over 50% EO, isn't he? Unless something changes.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised. And I think when you've got someone like him and then Eze, who's next at 6.5 as well, I think it's you're starting to fill out those midfielder spots so quickly. And we're already talking about a Man United midfielder you're probably going to have. You're already talking about an Arsenal midfielder you're probably going to have. Those midfielder spots are going to be really hard to pick, aren't they?
Well, Eze took a penalty, didn't he? Eze took a penalty towards the end of the season, so his value went up on that. Obviously, Hodgson's staying another year, I believe.
And Elise is out. Elise's injured.
Is Elise out? I didn't actually realise that.
Till September, potentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So their fixtures, so they even start with Sheffield United away.
Yeah.
First game of the season. I mean, he's going to be another popular one. But I feel like we're saying this for all the midfielders now, and we haven't even got all the midfielder prices.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could actually make it fun. There could be such an abundance of midfielders.
Yeah.
That people are going to pick them based on different things. Some people are going to go for fixtures. Some people are going to go pre-season form. People like me would just pick every single one that's on penalties.
Yeah.
And then moan when they miss.
Rightly so. Next, by the way, 3 of the next 4 are goalkeepers. We got Leno at 4.5, Pickford at 4.5, Sarr at 5. Any of those kind of take your fancy, or do you have one of those that is more of a preference than the others?
Yeah, I cannot believe that Sarr's 5. I was quite surprised. I was at that, to be honest. I know he saved a couple of penalties the season before last. The prices of Leno and Pickford I like. Leno in particular. I have a bit of a soft spot for him after last season. He was a save machine.
I like the fact that people hate Pickford. I think I'd go for him just because people hate him so much. Like, I think 4.5 million for an Everton team that should do a bit better next year. And even if they don't, he's going to be getting save points and stuff. I don't think that's awful. I think they're much for muchness, Leno and Pickford. I think both of them are good picks, to be honest.
No, I agree. I just think spend as little as possible on these. I think go for the 4.5. That's why Sarr, I just find it a bit mind-boggling. He's 5. I feel like that's a little bit of past reputation based on a couple of, he had a couple of big hauls, didn't he?
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily make him a good FPL asset, or it doesn't make him 0.5 better than Leno or Pickford, in my opinion anyway. Especially if we haven't seen any goalkeepers more expensive than that. If they cap it at 5.5 million again, you're not going to go for a Sarr over, I was going to say Edison, you might do. You're not going to go for like a Sarr over an Alisson, for example.
I think people will put Sarr in potentially, and then when they need to free up 0.5, that's where they'll free up the 0.5, and they'll go
straight gone.
Yeah, and they'll go to Leno or Pickford.
They'll be 4.8 by game week 3.
Yeah, exactly. Paqueta in there as well, 6 mil. For me, I don't know whether you agree. I feel like this might be a bit of a breakout season for him, but he's a wait and see. I'm not interested really in taking that gamble in game week 1.
No, it's a big gamble. I mean, obviously he's a great player, Brazilian international, but there's so many other options that, I don't see the reason to gamble.
Yeah,
I really don't.
No, I agree. I love him. I think he's a really, really good player. But like I say, he's a bit of a wait and see for me.
And then West Ham have lost Rice as well.
Yeah, true. Packet of rice. Son next, 9 million. 9 million's interesting because I'm seeing a lot of people. I'm seeing differing reports because obviously Ange is now taking over Spurs, and there's a lot of people saying Son could thrive in this kind of way that he plays. I've seen some people saying he won't do as well, and obviously then we've got to think about the fact, is Kane going to be there too? So for 9 million for a player that we know has won the Golden Boot before and he's a midfielder, it's an interesting price, but I think for 9 I'd struggle to pick him at the beginning.
What's interesting here is this was always the price that Son was, as in for years and years he always hovered around that price. And then obviously he's had a couple of great seasons and he shot up to, I mean, they overpriced him. It's not normally a complaint you have with FPL, but they did overprice him. After one of the hottest streaks we've ever seen, a player have, without penalties as well. I guess there's going to be, if Kane stays, there's going to be this argument: is Son better valued than Kane? I didn't believe he was 2 years ago when he destroyed Kane at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a bit. I don't think it's as big a bargain as people are making out. I think it's a fair price.
Yeah. I mean,
would you agree? I mean, what would you have priced him at?
See, it's I think it's a fair price. I think it's about right.
Because if he's 10, no one's having him.
No, and I think 8.5 is too little. But even 8.5, like their fixtures, they got Brentford away, then Man United at home, then Bournemouth away, Burnley away, Sheffield United at home. So in those first 2 weeks, you can forget about Brentford away and Man United at home. And then you've got 3 lovely fixtures. If you wanted to bring him in after that, then maybe you could. But for 9 million, you're going to have to want to. Like, you're probably going to, save your transfer first game week and then maybe make 2 free transfers ready for game week 3. So you could move things around a bit and see how it goes and maybe bring Son in then. And maybe we'll have seen how things are going with Spurs, I guess. But yeah, 9 million is interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, it's 500,000 more than Bruno. When I'd see, because Bruno's got penalties, I'd see them as a similar level. So I wouldn't pay 0.5 more. The other thing, I sound really low on Son. I think he's a great asset. I think it's a good price, but you're also not getting the best Spurs asset in my opinion. Like, as in, well, it's not a very controversial opinion. Yeah. But you're just going to want Kane, aren't you?
Yeah, and those midfield spots, like I said, we've already said you're going to want an Arsenal, you're going to want a United, and you've got all these bargain players like Mbumo and that. I'm really struggling to see who goes Son. There will be people that go Son, and we could be eating our words. But I think he's going to be quite low owned. I really do. Trippier's next, 6.5 million, had a bit of a price hike. Obviously, he's still not the most expensive defender in the game by 1.5 million. But 6.5, interesting. Obviously, their fixtures are not friendly for the first 4. Aston Villa at home, Man City away, Liverpool at home, Brighton away. But then their fixtures are gorgeous for about 6 game weeks. I think, someone asked me today, would you rather go Trippier at 6.5 or Trent at 8? I'd happily go Trent at 8 over Trippier at 6.5. I don't know whether you feel the same.
No, completely agree. I mean, the fixtures are what makes the discussion about Trippier quite easy to avoid.
Yeah.
And I think if we look back at the end of last season, we had the double with Newcastle, didn't we? And people were very low on Trippier. There was hardly anyone captaining him. Like, Praz is probably one of the only people I remember captaining him.
Yeah.
And then he got a couple of attacking returns. I think if it wasn't for that, I think people were quite low on Trippier at that time. Yeah, the fixtures aren't good. I think it's the perfect time to just wait, and you can buy him at 6.3 or something, after a few game weeks. But yeah, I'd much rather Trent than Trippier. I mean, obviously, if they were the same price, but even at their current price points.
That's a really good point that you make about Trippier. To me, seems like that perfect. People are going to log in, pick Trippier because he's one of the highest scoring defenders and he's cheaper than Trent. And then they're going to sell him after a couple of weeks because the fixture's horrendous. And you can buy him for that cheaper price. And he does seem like that kind of player where that's going to happen, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's going to be. I mean, he was basically 100% EO for a huge chunk of the season last year. And I think that's the first thing you're going to do. If you play this, you just played your Work Mini League and you log in. I think one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to click Trippier because he was good for you last season. You're going to click Haaland.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad pick, but I think you can go without to begin with. I'll be interested what his ownership will be. And I guess a lot of that would depend on what the other defenders are priced at.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like we're saying, oh, these are tricky fixtures. Like, he's got Aston Villa at home first. Yeah, that's not too bad. Then he's got Man City away and then Liverpool at home. And then Brighton away, which is one of the hardest places to go to. They are genuinely really tough fixtures, but then they are really nice for the next 6 weeks. So it just seems to me like you can take that gamble to miss out on him to start with. And I think I'd rather, I think that kind of makes sense to me.
It was funny though, because there was that thing last season about never bench Trippier, and because he did stuff like they lost against Man City, but he scored a free kick.
Yeah.
So it kind of bailed him out. So when you just looked at his points, it was like a very convenient time for him to score a free kick. But that's the other thing. He's not a huge goal scorer. A lot of it is assists.
And that's the difference between him and Trent, I think, as well. Like Trent's goal scoring ability. Like, don't get me wrong, he'll only get like 4 in a season or something, but that's 4 more than Trippier will get, really. Especially when you think about XG as well. And also the ability of Liverpool to be able to potentially score 6 or 7 in a game is much more than Newcastle's as well. So that's obviously helps Trent. Gibbs White next, and Benson from Burnley. So Gibbs White from Nottingham Forest, obviously Benson from Burnley. Benson did very well in bits last season, but it'd be interesting. I think Brownhill came in at 5, so it'd be interesting to see which Burnley players people go for. I will say this now, and we'll probably say this all pre-season. This is not the Burnley people remember from ages ago under Sean Dyche. It's a completely different Burnley. They play attacking football. They score a lot of goals. They are a good team. And it'll be interesting to see how Benson does. He did really well in flashes last season. You know, he's got it in him to score braces, but obviously this is a very different league. So it'll be interesting to see who goes with him. I don't think many people will to start with. Gibbs White, I think, is almost a moot point. He's a very good player, Gibbs White. But obviously, Brennan Johnson's just come out at 6 mil mid as well, and he's on pens. I think it's going to be hard to go for Morgan Gibbs White, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, he finished the season strongly. I think a lot of people noticed him towards the end of the season. And yeah, I agree with you on the Burnley players. I mean, I did have the stats loaded for... So yeah, Benson got 11 goals and 3 assists, and then Brownhill was 7 goals and 8 assists. So 14, 15 attacking returns each. Obviously in the Championship. But then I look at their price and it's like...
Meh.
I don't know. It's not that tempting, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I agree.
With the number of good midfielders there are. I mean, there's a midfielder for Fulham who's the same price who I'd possibly prefer.
Yeah. Right, moving on to the big boy now then. Haaland. I hate the fact the emoji is just the trophy. Haaland is next. They should have put 3 trophies, really, I guess, shouldn't they? Shoot me now. Haaland, 14 million. I'm so happy that FPL finally did it. They finally went, no, do you know what? We're going to have a 14 million striker again. We haven't had one since, who was it? Van Persie
was
did
14.
Yeah,
was he
14?
Henry
was 14. No, I think Van Persie only went to 14. He might have done it eventually, but he definitely started at 14. Henry was 14, and someone else was 14. Oh,
Suarez wasn't.
No, I should know who it was. Someone will tell us in the chat. But 14 million for Haaland. For me, it's still a no-brainer. I'm still going to have him. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to have him. Well, how do you feel?
I think, I agree. I think that's why I almost didn't really care. I think I'd prefer they priced them higher. So 14 seems fair. You know, I think the highest they could have really gone was 14 and a half. There is a small compromise I think they've made here. As in they have put Haaland up and they've put him up considerably, but then they've reduced Salah's price.
Yeah.
Almost like we wouldn't notice, because I know he didn't have the best start to the season, but he was still incredible. You know, the points that Salah's put up and the consistency he's shown over years. That's my one little disappointment. They've just bumped a little bit off Salah to make that Haaland a little bit easier to take. Yeah. But maybe that's just me.
I can't believe it. It was Ronaldo, by the way, that was 14 mil as well.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Should have remembered that.
And then more recently, we wouldn't even pay 10 for him.
No, exactly. Yeah, I think this is interesting. I think they're basically saying you've got to pick one or the other, haven't you? And I think everybody's going to be going with Haaland, and I don't think people are going to be going with Salah. I mean, when you look at City's fixtures as well, up to game week 7, they're just lovely. Like, you know, Burnley away, Newcastle at home, which is obviously tricky, but still at home. Sheffield United away, Fulham at home, West Ham away, Nottingham Forest at home, Wolves away. I mean, Liverpool's fixtures actually aren't the easiest. They do have some plum fixtures in there, but they're not the easiest up to game week 8. So, yeah, game week 2, home to Bournemouth. But then you've got players like Darwin, who's 7.5 million, who could be playing. So I think Salah at 12.5, I don't think a lot of people are going to own him to start with.
No, see, I was quite before I saw the prices today. I was quite adamant in my head that I was going to have Trent, I was going to have Salah, and I was going to have Haaland.
Yeah.
But it's not Salah's price that's put me off here. It's the
risky,
fact
mate. Risky.
Going without
Salah
Salah
and Haaland. Trent, Salah and Haaland. Cool.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but that was before today. But now they've chucked these little tempters in. I mean, like Bruno Fernandes at 8.5.
Yeah.
You basically have to go for Bruno Fernandes at 8.5. I imagine whatever Saka's price is, unless it's 11 million, I'm going to go for Saka no matter what. Yeah. Suddenly, we haven't talked about Trent yet, but his price has gone up. I feel like all the money's spent. They're kind of making us spread our funds around the squad, and the sacrifice to get the second premium in might actually end up being too big.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. Maybe that's partly why they've reduced his price very subtly.
And I mean, I remember talking about this at the beginning of last year. You're looking at owning Salah and Haaland together potentially later on in the season when you've had the price changes, your team value's gone up considerably, and then maybe you can afford having like Haaland and Salah in your team. But I think you're going to have to choose between the two. And the fact that they've made those mids so tempting at those prices, I think it's going to be okay to own just Haaland up front and maybe like a Morris with him or something like that. But
Game week 2, though, and I know it's Bournemouth very specific, but Liverpool at home to Bournemouth.
Yeah,
I know City are at home to Newcastle that same week. But if I was on a free hit in Game week 2, which I won't be, I wouldn't recommend that. I would captain Salah at home to Bournemouth. I know it. Was it the 9-0 last season where Salah didn't get any returns? That was Bournemouth, wasn't it?
Yes.
But again, we can't take into account that. I would not feel safe not having Salah captain in Game week 2. And that's going to be the dilemma I've got. And that's why I want to know the rest of the prices.
It's going to be horrible. It's going to be like one of those ones, isn't it, where people flip-flop between the two, or they make the change, or they get them in and something happens. But it's going to be interesting. I think it's made it good. I think they've made, like you said, they've made Salah just that little bit cheaper to tempt people there. And 12.5 million for what has been the best fantasy asset in FPL for the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Shall we move on?
Yeah, I guess there could be an argument. Maybe the first video back. I shouldn't be saying stuff like this, but maybe there would be an argument for going for Salah over Haaland, but potentially. But there's also a scenario where Salah becomes...
Lock it in.
you just wouldn't pick him. And that's if McAllister... I think Salah's going to be on penalties, but imagine McAllister took a penalty.
Stop it.
In pre-season. That would wipe Salah's value without pens.
I mean, it would, but he's not. He's going to be on pens, isn't he?
I think so as well. But I'm just thinking of scenarios that can happen that can completely make these prices,
Yeah.
The whole opinion on prices changes. But yeah, you could look at Salah over Haaland. Yeah. I don't think it's crazy. But then you could look for Son over Salah. I suppose you can make that argument. Even bigger saving.
Yeah, be interesting. Once we get the full price and obviously we start doing our drafts, be interesting to see how it goes. Right, just very quickly, we've got some of the other price reveals that have happened. So some more Luton prices that got revealed. Adebayo was 5 mil. It's interesting. He was their starting striker not too long ago, but obviously Morris came in. Osho 4.5, Clark 5, and Bell 4 million. A lot of hype about Bell. On some set pieces, plays pretty much every game. Left back 4 million. I think he's going to be in a lot of teams.
Yeah. I mean, he, like you say, he played a lot last season. Osho's 4.5. I only know him because he's from Reading. But yeah, Bell's the standout.
Yeah,
4 points. I mean, he's the only 4.0 defender so far, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think
he's the only 4.0 player that's been released so far. But yeah, I could see him being a 5th defender. Maybe you necessarily wouldn't want to start him, but
I've already asked FPL Bricky. He says, yeah, he's pretty much nailed on. Unless they sign a left back and say, yes, he's going to be our player. He said he's versatile as well. He can play in different positions. So I think 4.5 million, it's going to be hard to not pick him.
Or 4 million.
Yeah, did I say 5?
4.5, yeah,
million.
4 million.
Sorry. Sheffield United next. Norwood, 5 million. Sanderberg, 5 mil. Ahmed, 4.5. And McBurney, 5.5. Standout here for me is Ahmed at 4.5. He was a bit of a legend in Gaffer last year. Really good. In Footy Man, he was incredible not that long ago. So I think 4.5 million for him. But when you've got Bell there for 4, I think it's a tough one to go for maybe a 4.5 one unless you really fancy him. Any there that you like?
Honestly, not really. Not really.
Tough one.
If I'm being really truthful, I don't know about Ollie Norwood. I think he got like 2 goals last season.
Yeah.
Obviously, much more of a creator. I mean, it's nice seeing these players back in FPL, but there's no temptation there. I do wonder actually on Bell if they've done it on purpose, as in giving us, that it used to be they used to make an by accident they give us like a Lundstrom or something.
There was always a 4 mil. Aaron
Yeah.
Wan-Bissaka, wasn't it?
It's just very suspicious how they've released a 4.0 defender today, who they know is nailed. They could have gone on Wikipedia to see that he's played every game.
Yeah.
So I do feel like this is an artificial 4.0 to build a little bit of a hype, but
you reckon?
You've got to take it.
Do you think he was like? You don't think he's going to be a Vinagre? Vinagre, whatever his name was, from Wolves. Do you remember that?
Everyone was he 4.0?
He went on loan then, didn't he? After game week 1.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Burnley, Brownhill at 5 mil, Zarori at 5 mil, Muric at 4.5, and Roberts at 4.5. Roberts, good shout there. 4.5 million defender again, very attacking.
Yes, he played every game, didn't he? And he got a few goals.
Yeah, not bad. Obviously, they had Martson on loan from Chelsea last year. Whether they get him back, he was incredibly attacking. So if he's 4.5, he's the way to go. Brownhill at 5. I would wish he was 4.5. That would have been a lovely 4.5 midfielder there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting on Burnley because you said earlier they're not the same Burnley as we remember, as it were.
Yeah.
But they could still be tempted. I think they've got some good, reasonably priced options there. They've made it tricky though because players like Brownhill at 5, I think that's a fair price. You couldn't put him at 4.5, for example. But then because of the pricing of other players, I think it's hard to justify him as well. I'll be interested to see the final list of like 4.5 midfielders.
Yeah. I'm yet to see like a Harrison Reed where just plays every game, 4.5 million, gets you 2 points every week. That's what you want. Moving on to Liverpool now then. Some really interesting prices here. 7.5 million for Darwin, 6.5 million for Robertson, 8 million for Trent, and 6 million for McAllister. Literally, we could talk about each one of those for about 5 minutes. Let's just talk about Darwin first, 7.5 million. The problem with him is he's not nailed at all, is he? Like, there are so many players up front for them now, like Gakpo, Diaz, Jota, Darwin, obviously. Obviously, Firmino's gone. But they've got so many players up there. And Salah, obviously. 7.5 million seems like a bit of a bargain, but I think you're probably going to be running into a few issues quite quickly with him, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, if he was nailed on and played 90 minutes every week, he'd be an absolute bargain. He'd be in everyone's team. But yeah, you've listed the problems we got with picking non-Salah Liverpool attackers, apart from obviously Trent. So I think there'll be a time when we will go for him. I just can't see it being game week 1 unless we get a lot of injuries or something happens in pre-season. So I think he's going to be one we're all aware of. He's on our watch list, but you're going to need to see more minutes. He wasn't even getting 90 minutes last season when he was starting.
No, exactly. And obviously,
his expected stats were very, very good, like per 90. But if you're not getting the 90 minutes, it's a shame. You can kind of tell that I'd love to be able to pick him.
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of people would be able to.
If like you said, if he becomes nails, he's an exciting player. But was it game week 3 last year he got sent off?
Yeah, I was free. I'd actually freed up some money to bring him in. I hadn't done it though. Yeah, then he headbutted someone, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
Anderson, wasn't it? Was it for Crystal Palace?
Yes, yes. And I think the only person who owned him was Gianni.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's saying.
What? No, bless him.
Poor Gianni.
Next one. Robertson 6.5, Trent 8. 1.5 million saving. Just everybody's going to go Robertson, aren't they?
I'll definitely still go Trent.
Yeah, I will as well.
He's much more exciting. He's more nailed.
Could be playing in midfield.
I mean, if Robertson, let's say after a few weeks they were both consistently playing, we could even go back to the old days and have Trent and Robertson. But I think for now, that's probably getting a bit ahead of ourselves. But I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. Unless I can't see what 1.5 million would do for me to not go for Trent.
The thing is as well, like the how far forward he's getting and the fact he is kind of playing midfield. You think for England he played in midfield, didn't he?
I was going to say, did you watch him playing for England with Saka?
I know that was against minnows or whatever, but I don't care. Exactly. Like
I couldn't do those passes with no one else on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. I could believe that, Rich.
It's true.
I mean, 8 million. The fact we're even thinking 8 mil, still absolutely fine. Even Leighton Baines when he was 8 mil, it was still a conversation of but he plays for Everton but Trent at 80 mil, I think is still absolutely fine. But like you said, it's whether we get Robertson as well as Trent at certain points, as opposed to either or. I think.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a game week one thing to go for both.
No.
And I mean, I don't even think if I wasn't going to go for Trent, I wouldn't then automatically just default to Robertson. I think if I wasn't going to go for Trent, I'd spend the money elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like I'd look at a City defender or put the money further forward in the team.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Trent's the best defender, then Robertson's the next best, because I don't think that's the case. I think Trent's the best defender and Robertson is lower down. Still very good.
Tsimikas is there as well. He did take some minutes from Robertson last year.
That's the thing. And they're playing this new system as well. So does that then limit or reduce Robertson's minutes? Yeah. The debate with Trent and Robertson was always when they were both nailed on playing 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And even then, apart from one season, Trent edged it, or Trent more than edged it.
Yeah. And it's just his attacking output's ridiculous as well. Right, let's have a look at the next club, which was Fulham. Mitrovic, 7.5, Tete, 4.5, Pereira, 4.5 million bargain last year, has got a price hike to 5.5, and then Tim Ream at 4.5. Mitrovic at 7.5 is interesting. I didn't think he'd be 7.5. I thought he'd be about 7, to be perfectly honest. But 7.5, I suppose, is on pens. Beginning of last season, he was like a house on fire, wasn't he? So what do you think about that 7.5 million for him?
It's interesting with both the Fulham attacking players here, Mitrovic and Pereira, because obviously they got a lot of penalties last season.
Yeah.
As in Fulham had an awful lot of penalties. Mitrovic wasn't very good at them. I think that's being polite. So does he keep penalties is my first question.
Yeah.
If he gets a penalty, are you comfortable with it? What would be interesting for FPL, actually maybe not with how many good midfielders there are, is if Mitrovic came off penalties and Pereira got them full time, which I don't think it's going to happen because of Mitrovic's ego.
Yeah.
That would then be interesting.
Yeah.
You'd then have another midfielder to join Eze and Mbumo. You could have Pereira.
Yeah.
Mitrovic, though, I guess the question here, I'd say, is Mitrovic v Watkins. You can get Mitrovic for 0.5 less. Both are equally bad at penalties.
Fulham were a good team last year as well. They genuinely were a good team.
They were an incredible team.
Yeah.
They were incredible. But then Villa finished as an incredible team.
Yeah. Very
I guess my question is if Watkins is worth 0.5 more than Mitrovic.
Yeah.
I think that's... That's the one, I actually don't know. I could make a case for both of them being better because of that price dip. So they've actually priced them quite well, I think.
Yeah. And actually, I think you made a really good point in terms of Mitrovic. Is if Mitrovic is out at any point, if he's suspended, if he's, maybe loses penalties, or if he is injured at any point, Pereira at 5.5 is still an absolute bargain. Like 4.5 was silly last year. 5.5 can still be an absolute bargain for someone that could be on penalties and takes corners, takes set pieces. I think that could be really, really good pricing for him.
Yeah, I hope we didn't get like a second season syndrome with Fulham, because they were so fun to watch. The first 2/3 of the season.
Yeah.
It was just at the end when they were on the beach. Then Silva said they're not on the beach. Then they played well for a game, and then they were.
I know. Well, they also. You think Mitrovic and Silva both got suspended in that game as well, didn't they? So they were suspended. Mitrovic was 8 games, wasn't it, or something? So
yeah, that was one of the most memorable games of the season, and it wasn't even in the league. That was
that was brilliant. Next up, Nottingham Forest, Brennan Johnson, 6 million mid. Was not expecting that. Awani, 6.5. I'm assuming that's why, because Awani playing up front there. Danilo, 5.5. And Serge Aurier, 4.5 mil defender. Brennan Johnson's tempting at 6 million. He's on penalties. It's just whether you can have him over those other mids, isn't it?
This is where I feel a bit rusty now, because Brennan Johnson, he was on penalties. I feel like... I almost don't want to say this in case I messed it up. So do your own research if you're listening. Yeah. I feel like he missed a penalty and then Gibbs White took one instead. I mean, regardless, we'd have the penalty taker as a midfielder. I could be wrong. I could have dreamt about it because I've been missing FPL so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if he's on penalties, it's another... There's so many good options in midfield.
Yeah, there are.
It actually turns it into a bit of a lottery when you've got so many to pick between.
So what about up top then? If you are going just Haaland and you need that really cheap striker, but you don't want to go for a newly promoted player, what about Awani then? Taiwo, 6.5 million, actually finished the season quite well.
He was a weird one because I know there was a lot of the analytics guys were hyping him pre-season, as in when Forest came up, because they signed him, his stats I want to say in Germany, but could be wrong again. But yeah, his stats were really, really good. I think the only problem with him throughout the season was minutes. Like he didn't seem to regularly start. He'd be one that would be tempting. I mean, obviously he wouldn't fit the on penalties bracket.
True.
I think that would be the only thing that might put me off him, if I'm going for a striker. Hold on, I've lost my place here. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I don't think there's been any more prices released since we've been streaming. I'm just double checking now.
Yeah, were we doing that at the same time?
Yeah.
So just call silent. Sorry about
that. Yeah, that's all right.
Bit awkward.
But lovely. I mean, there you go. We've just gone through, I don't know what we've gone through, about 40, 50 prices there.
Did we go through them all?
Yeah, that's all of them. All of them done.
Oh, wow. So what, 150 to go? Or however many it is?
We're fine. Thank you so much for everybody that's joined us tonight. We have over 300 people in the chat, which is great for, FPL isn't even properly back yet, but thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you like the stream. First Scoutcast back, give it a smash. Make sure you like it for us. Rich will go home crying otherwise. Won't you, Rich?
Yes.
Yes. And make sure you subscribe and watch us every week this year, because we are going to be here with you every week, hopefully with Seb as well. Make sure you sign up for a Fantasy Football Scout membership and save up to 30% in pre-season. So make sure you do that as well, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Rich, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, I did. It feels it was only 2 months, wasn't it, without this game?
Yeah.
And then slowly things are coming back into my brain, stuff
remembering how to do
long
it.
Forgotten about. Yeah,
exactly.
Long forgotten about thinking about Gibbs White taking a penalty and stuff. But yeah, we haven't actually got that long now to the season starts.
No,
I was quite enjoying the break, to be honest.
I was enjoying the break, but I'm starting getting that itch.
I start getting that. Now. It's almost like a competitive feeling.
Yeah, big time. And of course, there's no summer football this year either. So,
no.
Yeah, but like I said again, thank you so much for people that joined us in the chat, and we will see you again very soon. Bye-bye.